tide. We flow together like an ocean, every low and every high. And I would have you anyway, dear, any way your heart could bear. Even if you had to leave me, I'd always be waiting here. Even when we are apart, I will keep you in my heart, and I wouldn't change a thing, even if I were the king. I've never known a brighter sunset, but every day I see it rise. I've never thought it could be better until I saw it in your eyes.
What's up, everybody? My name is Kwa, and welcome to What's Your Pitch virtual competition. This is our very first one. This is our sixth annual virtual competition. I would say it's our sixth What's Your Pitch competition. It's the very first virtual competition over here. Just to give you a brief introduction, USPAACC was founded in 1984, and it was the most established, largest nonprofit organization for representing the Pan-Asian Americans and their related groups in business, science, the arts, sports, education, public and community services. Again, this is our sixth one. It started in 2014, and before we start, I had the privilege to start the competition, to host the competition last year out in Wells Fargo's in New York, and being in a virtual environment, well, it's very, very different. It's not. This isn't, we want to make this a show, but we also want to make sure that it's focused on the content, it's focused on the business, and ensuring that we're creating some opportunities for people to have this way to expose themselves into the marketplace. So with that, I want to thank our sponsors. It's Wells Fargo, Southern California, Edison, and as well as Trans Technologies. And I also want to introduce our judges. We have our first judge, which is Ryan Silvestri. He's a senior consultant for the SBDC, also a dear friend of mine and very critical of business. And then we have Catherine Tai from Palm Drive serving as the vice president, and we have Nick. Nick Hugh. So the titles got all wrong over here. It's okay. You know what? But that's it got flip-flopped because someone had turned off the video and turned it back on, and it's okay. So Palm Drive, I know is we worked with the Palm Drive, and we worked with Seaman Chen and from last year as one of our judges, and he had happened to bring our Catherine and Nick to the stage over here to help judge this competition. So with that, I want to bring on some of the rules. So each presenter will have 10 minutes, including self-introduction, and to be able to pitch their project, pretty much. Each competitor that's on the call, we have 6 on the call at the moment. Everyone is to make sure they are muted and stay off the video line and give the presenter the opportunity to not be distracted and present properly. At the end of the 10 minutes, we're going to bring the judges back on to have a Q&A session. Each of the judges will have ask one question, whether it's critical or or thoughtful. But and then can we bring it to the next one? And each presenter will also be scored on the form presentation through Q&A. So the form presentation scores are the materials being presented, meaningful examples and practical applications, quality of the slide deck, and presentation style. Unfortunately, we are in the virtual world, and you're going to have to get really good at this virtual presentation, and I think that's going to be judged to you. So good luck. The ability to understand the questions and the market opportunity strategy and the proposition and distinctive competence. And IP financial investment potentials and the exit strategies are some of the things that the investors are going to be thinking about as well. And obviously, teaming is always important. And so, so with that, without further ado, let's get started. We're going to bring on our first contestant. His name is Duff Archie from Off We Go. So can we bring him in? So Duff, let me bring you in. Sorry about that. This is going to be, this is as candid as it can be. We're going to spotlight your video. There you go. All yours, Duff. Bring him in. How you doing, Duff?
Good. How are you? Can you see me and hear me all right?
Yes, we can see you. And let me mute out some of the contestants over here. Perfect. And
awesome.
And we're gonna start. So I'm gonna give you a 5-second buffer time to start when we start the clock. And when I say go, off you go. Okay. Here we go.
Great. There you go. I'm going to share my screen here for a second. Are you able to let me know when you're able to see my deck?
We are able to see it.
Yep. Yes, we are.
All right.
Awesome.
Off you go, Duff.
Off we go. All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining today. My name is Duff Archie. I'm the co-founder and the COO of Off We Go, a student-centric risk management solution for international educators. My co-founder and I founded this idea through our own experiences traveling and studying abroad through sponsored travel in undergrad. Now, students, when they travel, are inherently risky. Higher education and study abroad is consistently ranked at one of the number one or in the number 3 things to do in undergrad. But the reasons why it's number 1 to 3 are often not what you think. It's not for the academics, it's for the social interaction. And some of these experiences that you can see highlighted here are some of the best travel experiences that students have mentioned. Whether they're sliding down waterfalls in Fiji with convicts, almost getting kidnapped on the metro in Paris, or falling off a motorbike in Thailand, which is exactly what happened to my co-founder, John, while studying in Australia. Trading English lessons for stitches by a 12-year-old boy at a local gas station. Now, at the heart of this issue is the lack of student voice and engagement with the safety and security resources that are necessary to maintain their own personal safety and the duty of care of their sponsoring institutions. In fact, nearly 70% of students do not report their side trips or independent off-campus travel while in school-sponsored programs, which when something goes wrong, the school is exposed to not only the incident-related loss and expense of what happened, but also the disproportionate harm and to the reputation of the institution and the strategic objectives to promote the wide use of study abroad options. Thus, at Off We Go, we bridge all the gaps with a student-focused experience created by and for students studying abroad. Students travel for adventure. They worry less than they should about their own personal safety and security. Thus, we've created a fun and engaging platform for planning travel, which teaches and drives proper engagement with safety controls. So we are B2B2C. We sell directly to the university, who provide the product to the students in the mandatory pre-departure orientation process, and are able to share data with the necessary stakeholders, those universities, parents, and insurance providers. We are mobile first for students and web first for admins. Socially, we're creating a unique safe space where education abroad or study abroad students can share information such as their favorite cafes, restaurants, museums, alongside safety tips and tricks, which often go underreported or not reported at all. Such as, when you're in the UK, look right before left. When you're crossing the street, don't want to get run over by a bus. Or in a more serious aspect, because 2/3 of the market are women, hey, me and my 3 girlfriends were harassed at this one bar in Amsterdam. You're going to want to cover your drinks. You're going to want to keep an extra eye out for things that are going on. These are key pieces of safety information that are passed down from student to student that often are not reported. We want to become that safe space. Financially, we also have an incentive for the students. We partner with in-destination tour and activity providers, such as with Locals or Viator, to help give those students access to discounts and access to budget cultural experiences. And then finally, on the safety side of things, we partner with leading travel assistance and insurance providers, such as Allianz, to provide vital safety info, in-destination travel alerts to all students who travel through Off We Go, as well as the option to purchase additional insurance if need be. Whether the student needs medical attention, lost their passport, or needs mental health support, we can connect the students to the appropriate resource efficiently and appropriately. At the heart of all this is, in the incentives, is gamification. We apply Yukai Chao's gamification principles, which is the autolysis framework, so that proven principles that have worked for Duolingo, Noom, Strava, Forest, etc., could help transform travel safety adherence while also generating valuable data for our stakeholders. On the admin side of things for the university, they receive a dashboard of all of their students, can see who's going where, who's affected by what travel advisories, and what students they need to reach out to. We primarily operate on yearly and bi-yearly contracts with universities and study abroad providers. But we also see ways of monetizing our partnerships with travel insurance providers with the user-directed data share to augment their insurer information about any mutual customers or travelers who are traveling through us. We've also see ways that we can gain commissions from these online travel agencies or in-destination tour providers that we're partnered with, and see ways of monetizing the social network through event pages when we're at scale. Now, the international student market is a big one. It's global travel is estimated to be $320 billion by this year. U.S. higher education independent travel is about 5.6. Independent international student travel to the U.S. is about 45 billion. And then specifically looking at U.S. education abroad, independent travel is roughly just over $1 billion, going up to $9 billion when you incorporate all of the travel expenses and the tuition and everything like that. However, that being said, although it's a relatively niche market we're starting in, this has wide-ranging applications outside of our market, into the corporate leisure market, which is a combination between business and leisure, which has really become the standard. In fact, according to Expedia, nearly 60% of all business trips in 2018 turned into leisure trips. That mixing of business and leisure, and that same fine line is in that market of where does that duty of care begin and end. And we've, after speaking with a few corporate providers, they've voiced their interests as well once kind of tested things out in this international student market. Now, in terms of the team, like I mentioned, John and myself have lots of experience in this market, but we're also supported on the technical side with Vasu, who is graduated top of his class in Comp Sci from Middlebury College, having developed his own multiplayer game, so can kind of really contribute to those game loops and what makes it addicting. In terms of Neil Shaw and his experience, he's an experienced co-founder of Aspire and on the founding team of EverFi, so he knows kind of the ed tech market, as well as he's an angel investor in the K Street Capital Group here in the DC area. So he's also educating us non-technical co-founders on how to manage, recruit, and really lead a dev team, which has been a huge asset to the team. On the advisor side, we are complemented with a great team of both travel tech and ed tech advisors, as well as a seasoned team of entrepreneurs who are also, we can lean on for their great expertise as well. In terms of customer acquisition and getting these universities onboarded, we are members of the same key trade organizations that they're a part of. So whether it's NASFA, ERMEA, IIE, etc., these being members of these same organizations get us in front of the same key decision makers as our competitors, and in the rooms of the people that are going to be making the decisions at the end of the day of whether to adopt or decline the contract. These are our primary our business customer acquisition expense, ranging from about a few $100s to about 20 to 30 grand, depending on the event and the sponsorship. In terms of the students, as I mentioned, we operate on on the pre-departure orientation side of things, so which all students are mandated to before they depart campus on their specific program, as well as the in-destination orientation once they get to their program provider. And then we can also see ways of getting the parents involved with some social and helping to put pressure on these different organizations. In terms of our competition, we are our primary competitor is Teradata. They have their tentacles in many different facets of international education, from inbound international students to the U.S., to outbound study abroad, to health waiver management and stuff like that. And in all of that, the chaos, some of their features get lost in translation. And we've heard from our clients that it's expensive. It's there's a lot. It's a lot of upstart costs, and it's complicated to use. And so all of our competitors across the board have this lack of engagement with travel tracking, because at the end of the day, they are admin centric. They are building for the end user of the admin and are missing out on that key stakeholder of the student. Because if you're not getting that student involved, just because you provide them a service doesn't mean they're going to actually use it. You need to make it engaging for that student to
I'm giving you 10 more seconds, Duff, because we started a little bit 10 seconds late. So wrap it up, 10 seconds.
Yeah, perfect, no problem. Wrapping up here. So in the sense of COVID, you might think that students aren't traveling. In fact, according to Student Universe polls, they're traveling. Over half have just postponed their trips. They're not canceled. We have 2 schools, excuse me, in the MOU process, and we've been coined the Innovative Technology Finalist for 2020.
All right, and that's a done, Arch. So let's bring it into we're gonna bring me in Stevenson, and so we're gonna be bringing in our judges right now, and so let's bring in the judges, and then hold on, we're gonna go into the gallery mode, and 1 second. And Duff, can I have you stop your? Can I have you unscreen your? There you go. Perfect. Thank you. And there you go. And 1 second. I'll take myself out. And let's bring him in. Okay, good. So judges, let's start with Ryan.
Okay. All right. I like the product. Unfortunately, when I graduated college 20 years ago, did not get a chance to travel, and it was something that was always on my bucket list. So this definitely hits a little sweet spot for me personally. My biggest concern that I was thinking about during the entire presentation was something that you started to address at the very, very end. So I didn't really get a chance to hear that end pitch, because most of the stats that you quoted were from 2018. So it was a pre-COVID environment. So my questions and concerns are contingency plans moving forward in a post-COVID environment, and what does that look like? Especially where the enrollment for a lot of colleges in the past year to have been consistent, going down even before COVID. So that's the other side of my question. So
Sure.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, great. Thanks for the question. I think it's a great lead-in from where I just left off, and so. Okay. To continue with that, we've actually seen an increase in demand in the last about 2 to 3 months, for demos and MOUs. Is that through this process of everybody was repatriated from their study abroad opportunities this past spring, right? And they were emergency evacuated. Now we are just starting to see universities and program providers kind of have the 2020 hindsight, no pun intended, with everything that's been going on, and saying, how can we address this going forward? If you look historically, even in past health crises as well as financial crises, study abroad has actually increased. It's stayed the same, and actually to take the Great Recession, for example, in 08, 09, there was a slight dip of about 20%, But then in 09, 10, there was a jump of up to pre-recession levels of 30%. When students can't find work, they travel. And so now that in this COVID crisis, what we're seeing here is a little bit of the same. Is speaking with these students now, they're saying, although my university might bar study abroad for this fall, I'm looking at other opportunities. Gap year, when you search the Google Trends for gap year, it's increased exponentially here in the States. And so we're seeing kind of trends like we do in Europe for this gap year now, which is a route we're exploring. We're also exploring the B2C side of things now. Students and affiliate groups, student affiliate groups, Greek Life are traveling more, just as much, which frankly on a personal level is a little concerning. But for business, that's actually pretty great. You're going to have parents that are really worried about the whole COVID thing, that we might be able to transition into that market, and parents that might buy $50 to $100 purchase of this because of all of everything that's happening. On the university side, although schools are kind of paused things for right now, a lot of universities are looking towards spring 21 and summer 21 to resume travel, and are looking at new innovative ways to, in a new COVID world, on how to really manage this. And so I hope that answers your question.
All right.
No, it does. So you based a lot of information on Google Analytics for the recent trends on what students are doing. And there is also a potential for a B2C market as well, which might open up depending on what kind of travel restrictions we're looking at in the near future. All right, I appreciate it.
And so we're going to bring on, I like to advise just to make sure that you keep your answers, I know you have long-winded answers, but just try to keep them short and concise too, just for time purposes, okay? Catherine, any questions?
Yeah, so thanks, Steph. I think the global student travel market is really huge, and I'm also a big fan of international studies, and I was an international student too. So my question is, what do you think about your exit strategy?
I'm sorry, you broke up there for a second. What was that?
What do you think about your exit strategy? Exit
strategy, yes, perfect. Thank you for that question. So there's a couple different routes we can take. The first is through actually our competitor Teradata themselves. They've been interested in what we're doing, and we're kind of keeping each other updated. And so that's one exit strategy. Another is actually the travel assistance firm route. So, On Call International, World Aware, International SOS, these are all travel assistance firms that augment travel insurance providers with these in-destination alerts, as well as the travel insurance firms themselves. Allianz specifically took a really interest in us because of this Gen Z lack of engagement with their insurance products problem.
Gotcha.
And Nick?
Yeah, so this is something I was looking for in the deck, but how big are your competitors? We got a taste of who they are, but ultimately who are you disrupting, and how big are they? So that's basically who you're replacing.
Great. Yeah, great question. So I would say on the direct competitor side, with Teradata is probably the gold standard in the market, which we will be the disruptor. They recently raised a Series A round of about a private equity round of about 4 million in that range.
Okay.
Via TRM is a relatively small startup focused again on the pre-departure side of things. We're actually partnered with them on a few things, and they're smaller than that. They're about seed stage. I think of a team of about 10 to 15.
Okay, and what the incumbents? In terms of the old line way. So, if you're replacing a bunch of incumbent players, how big are they?
Sure. So the incumbents is really the paper trail system of the universities. Or internal systems on how to manage it.
Okay.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Duff. I hope that wasn't too nerve-wracking. Good job.
No, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right, very good. So we're going to be bringing on our next contestant, and that will be Harrison Kim. Can you, Duff, can you turn off your video and bring Harrison? And there we go. And turn on your video, Harrison. Awesome, great. and let's bring in them. Great, awesome. So, Harrison, I'll go through the rules again. You got 10 minutes. We're gonna reset the clock, and then I'm gonna give you I'll give you an extra 5 seconds, so you have a 5-second get started. And I made the mistake earlier of kind of going 10 seconds too early and too late for Duff, but I gave it back to him. So with that, let's bring it to the solo. You want to start off with your screen share? Perfect. And great. So let's start the clock, and off you go, Harrison.
Perfect. First of all, thank you all for your time today. My name is Harrison Kim, and I'm the CEO of PaveStep, an intuitive 360 performance management solution that enables the culture of feedback. I'm going to go through our pitch in kind of 5 sections today: overview, adoption and traction, team, market opportunity, and then the fundraising ask. I'll actually start with a quick story before we dive into what our company does. So several years ago, I started my career as a consultant at McKinsey, and I was in the Canadian Arctic, of all places. I spent 7 months there trying to help a diamond mining company and try to transform their enterprise, their strategy, and their operations. I met my manager for the first time there. It was my first Monday. He said, "Hey, Harrison, nice to meet you. My name is Dom. We got to go meet the CEO to talk about the project and introduce ourselves." I'm like, "Sounds good. Let's go do it." So we went up there and did my thing. I was a young, ambitious consultant who was like, "All right, I'm going to drive the meeting, show a lot of relevant knowledge, all this good stuff." And I did. And I was feeling pretty good about myself. We came down from the meeting and Dom said, "Hey, Harrison, can I give you some feedback?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." He said, young consultants like you do one of 3 things when they're in front of a senior manager. 1, they talk really fast. 2, they never say, "I don't know." And 3, they have an uptick like this whenever they finish a sentence. You did all 3. I was like, whoa. And he said, "Don't worry about it. We're going to figure out a plan to fix those 3 things so that you can become more presentable and more credible in front of senior clients." And so we did. And that's a really good example of what constructive feedback or meaningful feedback looks like, right? It was behavior-based, forward-looking, and obviously with great intentions. And this was frankly the biggest ritual at McKinsey, sharing feedback with your colleagues on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And when you have this kind of language and culture in place, it can be a very powerful tool for developing and motivating your workforce. And this is exactly what we're trying to enable for our clients. And my experience at McKinsey was what originally inspired me to start PaveStep. And by the way, Dom actually ended up being one of our investors as well. So I owe him a lot. And so coming back to the slide here, about us, as I mentioned, we're an intuitive performance management solution. So if you think about traditional performance reviews, not many people like them. They're pretty ineffective and they're very time consuming. So one, feedback is infrequent and meaningless. Most employees receive feedback almost once or twice a year, right? That's just not enough, especially if you want to course correct as soon as things happen. Second, feedback is performance data at the end of the day, right? It's very valuable. We make all kinds of important talent decisions based on it, whether it's promotion, whether you want to, increase the compensation, whether you're going to fire somebody, or even if it's training. While we can all probably agree that it's very important data, most organizations are still using and relying upon managers' memories to make these decisions. It literally just doesn't make any sense. And lastly, performance reviews are pretty time consuming, not just for HR, but for all employees involved. Again, most people hate reviews, not because they're fundamentally wrong thing to do, but because organizations and managers are really just bad at them. And we fixed this issue by activating the culture of feedback and accountability. So tactically, with our SaaS platform and support, we help managers and employees share better feedback with each other. And we act as the one place to store and analyze all of this data so that they can make better and more informed talent decisions. You can see what the world looks like without PaveStep versus with PaveStep. In the world without, people are receiving, effectively no feedback throughout the year. And even when the feedback is shared, it's not actually meaningful and it's never documented. Again, managers at the end of the year make decisions based on their memories. I don't even remember what I had for lunch last Thursday. Somehow they can remember what happened over the last 12 months. In the world with PaveStep, people receive feedback up to 30 times per year per employee, and all of this is in one place for them to analyze and understand so that they can make better, more informed talent decisions. Again, the point around, our focus is around real-time and meaningful feedback, documenting usable data and insights, and light process that can save a lot of time. And our long-term vision is to become something like a FICO of employee performance. As I mentioned, I think employee performance or feedback and objectives that people make progress on, these are the most important data points in an employee life cycle. We use it to train people, compensate people, promote people, fire people, and even hire people, right? Like resumes are just another form of your skills and performance. It's just created by the employees themselves or candidates themselves. And we want to be trusted as the single source of truth for employee performance. And of course, be integrated into all of the core talent decisions that organizations have to make. Imagine a world in which you can use PaveStep as a credible data source to understand someone's strengths and weaknesses and create a truly personalized training, right? That's the type of thing that we are thinking about, and that's what we mean by FICO of employee performance. From adoption and traction perspective, just 3 things that I want to highlight here. We think, one, buyers' biggest fear and barrier to buying a performance management solution or a feedback solution is the fear of lack of adoption, right? Many organizations, buy software like ours, and only like 20% of the organization uses it when they're told to. And we think we're actually starting to crack the code on adoption. Second, we've had really, really great feedback from industry professionals, some of them literally being, speechless. And lastly, despite COVID, we've had some, strong growth, and we look to continue that going forward. So we were lucky to have an early beta client back in June timeframe last year. We officially launched in September, but we've seen significant impact and sustained adoption with our first client. So for each of the employees that with this client, they've received more than 33 feedback documented within our platform over the last 12 months. And PaveStep was the several directors' answers to their annual review, what challenged them most to grow in the last 12 months, right? We think this is a great client that we've had a lot of impact, a lot of and sustained adoption, and we want to make this and continue to duplicate this going forward. And we think we're actually doing that. So with recent implementations, we're seeing, again, strong signs of adoption, right? They've gone from literally almost no feedback whatsoever to as high as 2.3 per employee per month. Our internal target for each client is get to about 2 or 2.5 per employee per month from our adoption and our implementation success perspective. And as you can hopefully hear from me, right, adoption, I think, is the most critical aspect and frankly, the most challenging aspect of our industry. We also think, again, this is the biggest fear for our buyers. And we think we're, really starting to crack the code on boosting adoption. And this is precisely how we want to differentiate. It kind of comes down to 3 things for us. One, it's really intuitive design, simplified, and no bells and whistles. One of the issues that we found with our competitors talking to customers is that there are too many features that don't actually get used whatsoever way, but it gets people lost in the platform. Second is we actually not only focus on continuous feedback, but also meaningful feedback. There is a real art and science behind what makes feedback effective. And this is what we focus on using our analytics, design, as well as support. And then the last piece is the culture shift, right? We're focused on adoption, like I said, and we help clients set up the right smart processes that change behaviors and shift culture over time so that we can get the right adoption. And yes, this does cost a little more for us from a upfront cost sales process perspective. But we think, 1, this is a real differentiator, and 2, this is going to make us much more sticky and increase our LTV over the long run. And here's some verbatim quotes that we've gotten from industry experts. And in particular, I'm most proud of the first one, as she's a CEO of a leading coaching organization in the East Coast here, who literally specializes in teaching feedback and management skills for organizations. She's very well respected and versed in the performance management market, and she literally, thought that this was better than anything else that she's been seeing in the market, which was awesome for me. Now, switching a little bit to the traction side, so we've had strong growth over the last 9 months. I have omitted the numbers just for confidentiality reasons. The gray bars represent deals that we lost due to COVID situation, and a lot of them are actually still on the table, and we look to hopefully capture them going forward over the next 9 to 12 months.
1 minute, Harrison.
And in the short term,
we got 1 minute left.
And in the short term, we think, again, we're looking to We're in active discussions with about 40, a little more deals with worth about 6,000 licenses that we think we'll be able to close more than half the time over the next 9 to 12 months. Now, from a team perspective, I'd like to spend a little bit more time on our background and introduce the team. So on myself, I graduated from the University of Calgary, AKA Harvard of Calgary, and joined McKinsey full-time. I specialize in enterprise transformations for companies of all sizes in all industries. And after McKinsey, I joined Odyssey, a private equity firm located here in New York and LA. And I actually specialize in human capital management businesses, including staffing, performance management, anything else that really touches talent. And fortunately, I was able to do a good job at both of these places and receive my direct promotions at faster than anyone else effectively. And in my mind, I really attribute 3 things to these successes and little wins. 1, hard work. 2, luck. And 3, honestly, feedback.
And
like, feedback,
Harrison, you're good. This is it. All right.
Perfect.
Thank you, Harrison. Thank you, Harrison. I think trying to keep your presentation to a certain time is almost an art. So appreciate the effort. Let's bring the judges back in. Great. We'll start off. Let's start with Nick this time. Go ahead, Nick.
Sure. Yeah, nice presentation. I wanted to ask, what's your edge in business development? Because I feel like there are actually a lot of SaaS companies out there focusing on feedback and general sort of employee HR management. So yeah, how do you differentiate yourself from that crowd when you're trying to sell to your customers?
Yeah, I think there's a few things, but one is we're actually going after a slightly different market. When you look at the market overall from a sector perspective, there's a lot of sectors like technology, right, that have been very, very well penetrated with HR, like feedback type of platforms. Whereas if you look at other industries like professional services, nonprofits, financial services, there's a lot of white space. And frankly, a lot of the companies that are our competitors are from the West Coast. So they don't actually have roots in the East Coast. And that's where we're targeting from a targeting perspective, from a time spent perspective. And second, from a go-to-market strategy, like this isn't going to be necessarily scalable over the long run, but I am becoming a true thought leader in the industry, right? I'm getting invited as a speaker into SHRM conferences. My workshop is actually accredited as a SHRM course and things like that. So we're really focusing on the expertise and the focus on like effective and meaningful feedback, not just continuous feedback.
Okay, got it.
All right, Catherine.
So I want to dig into the numbers and financials. So how many clients do you have right now?
So I'm not going to disclose that today. I apologize.
So how about your go-to-market strategy? Like how long is your sales cycle?
Yeah, the sales cycle, it's an interesting answer because it varies significantly. We've seen organizations go from, like enterprise organizations go from our first demo to meeting the president in a month and a half and actually implementing that versus smaller companies taking 6 months. And especially because of COVID, I honestly cannot give you a good estimate at this point based on our data. But what we expect is about 3 to 4 months in terms of sales cycles from initial demo to actual onboard.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And last but not least, Ryan.
Right. I have a tough time because I have a lot of questions I want to ask.
Only one, Ryan.
I'm
only
thinking,
one.
all right. So and ironically, it comes at good timing because I just had my performance review, which is the first one I've had in 10 years. And like you said, all the obstacles that you described were exactly the pain points that we experienced. So I can relate to this pretty well. As a tech startup, it's usually pretty heavy on capital for the R&D side, to get it to market, to push out all the bugs in the system. So without disclosing any data that's too sensitive, what kind of burn rate are you looking at? Can you sustain yourself? And when would that break-even point arrive? Yeah.
So our run rate is much leaner than probably most of our competitors, and frankly, most of the SaaS companies in the US. So I originally come from Canada. I was born in Korea, grew up in Canada, and most of my team is actually based in Canada. And given the current currency favors, I have a very low cost team that is extremely effective. That's worked together for a while. And so our R&D burn rate is actually very, very low. I'm not going to disclose specific numbers.
No, that's but what about so you can see yourself sustaining it for the, through the foreseeable, obstacles that we have with the COVID market.
100%. And actually, COVID has given us actually a big boost. We've actually had the most busy season over the last 2 months. We're getting, we're right now at the point where we're actually getting overwhelmed from the demand perspective, is why we're raising ahead of time. We actually have enough runway to give us, well into 2022.
Okay, good. Because that was one of my other questions about your target audience, because I feel that depending on the target audience, this might be an opportunity for you to boost sales, because companies are forced to lean up their operation and look for ways to increase efficiencies. And depending on who you're targeting, they might have the pockets to justify this expense.
Absolutely. And frankly, they just are forced to do this through a digital means, right? And that's exactly where it comes in place.
Okay. Understood. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, judges. Thank you, Harrison. And nice seeing you again. All right. So we're going to bring up our next contestant, which is, I believe, Joe James. Can you bring up your video and unmute yourself? Great. Let's bring him in.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Joe. Okay, so I'm sure you've been listening. So you're going to have 10 minutes. I'm going to give you a 5-second countdown before you could start. You could start off with your screen share right now. And so far I think we're doing pretty good on time, I believe. So
where did my PowerPoint go? Oop.
Okay. So all this is all part of the presentation. So make sure you got to make sure the technology is working, guys. All right. Joe, if you're having a problem to share your screen, we could push you down to another. We could bring you back last. All right. So I'll give you another 30 more seconds, and if you can't do it, then we'll bring in Rajiv in. Okay.
I don't know where it went.
Okay. All right, so what you're going to do is you could turn off your video. You could find your PowerPoint. We're going to bring in Rajiv Rupan to supplement, and then we'll bring you in after Suhan Shu, okay? So Rajiv, can you come on? Sorry, you're jumping on a little bit earlier now.
Hey, yeah, sorry about that.
Nope. Rajiv, can you turn on your video?
Wasn't expecting it. Yeah, 1 second.
All right, very good. Okay, and
hey guys, how you doing?
How you doing? Thanks. Thank you for that. And can I'm gonna give you like I said before, you have 10 minutes. I'm gonna give you a 5-second countdown, and then you could get started. So you could start with your share screen. Okay. Your presentation. Great. And let's start the clock. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and off you go.
Hey guys, so my name is Rajiv. This is my company, Journey.hr. It's basically a new type of platform which focuses on skills over like things like degrees and your education, things like that. So think about it. Sorry about that. Think about it in a way. On sites such as LinkedIn and Indeed, recruiters are looking through candidates, and they're kind of building a score in their head based on their experiences being a recruiter, experiences with past candidates, things like that. So they're kind of building the score in their head. How they calculate it, they kind of look like things that like your education, like where you worked recently, your past experience, things like that. So it's very biased. So we're basically trying to refocus behavior to where recruiters are looking at the results of skill sets and the identity of the person, like their education, their work history, things like that. Their email address, their name are not revealed until the candidate is actually interested in the position. So this is how we're going about building that right now. So I'll explain a little bit more about the current issues with recruiting. Oh, sorry about that. So obviously there are tons of issues with recruiting. These are broken down issues. So the main one that we're trying to solve is this socioeconomic division. Candidates from more opportunistic backgrounds are more likely to get selected. Resume screens, obviously, as I just kind of mentioned, the recruiter is building this kind of score in their head about, how good a candidate is, and if they should go forward with like a phone screen, things like that. Resume screen, that selection process is messed up. The language and the job description can be biased. Obviously, there's AI bias when you apply AI to all those existing biases. The recruiter may not know how to screen certain candidates very well, and obviously it costs a lot of time and money. So our mission is to improve diversity, innovation, and wellness in modern workplace. So our platform is going to remove unconscious bias. We have 300 plus validated hard and soft skills tests. We have a very strategic way we can source candidates very fast into our system. So our solution right now, we're really at a data collection process. So we're not revenue process, but we're data positive. We have about like 1,000 candidates taking one of our tests per week. So we're collecting data on different types of tests, technologies like Java, Python, languages, frameworks, things like that. We also collect their personality as a demographic, and we get demographic data. It's a bot-based test. We score the candidate based on the questions that they answer. And based on the data that we collect, we use that data, like the gender, race, to see how we're helping placing candidates. So this is a MVP example. So there are a lot of people taking these tests right now. So this is an example of one of the Java tests. So we get how they score on these tests. We also get their resumes and cover letters. So our competition, so there are two types of competitors. One is like a big job board, like Indeed and LinkedIn, and they're starting to get into skills tests as of now. They're direct, like B2B competitors where like Skillless and Seek Out, they go after companies directly and act as their recruiter. And all these, the Seek Out and Skillless platforms are getting into the diversity, solving the diversity problem also. They're all just doing it in different ways. So we have fraud detection. So we collect the time, basically it takes for a candidate to answer a question, and we can compare that to like our results of other candidates and things like that to see if someone's like not taking it seriously or going in and looking up the answer. We collect personality data, a little bit of personality data. It's a bot-based experience. We have an efficient way to source candidates really fast, and as fast as the company or as slow as the company needs. And we have over 300 tests, skills tests. So we provide a comprehensive solution, patented fraud detection, a larger database, and a better UI for skills testing. So basically, this is how it's going to work. A recruiter is going to come on the site. So we have candidates that have taken these tests. A recruiter creates an account. They search for a certain type of skill, like Java or something like that. The system allows them to connect blindly to the candidate. They don't know who the person is. And then if the candidate is interested, it'll deduct one of their credits, which they're able to buy. So we'll monetize based on like a credit system. So we have one patent. We have 2 provisionals that we filed. We're Delaware-based S Corp. We have basically 300. We get about 3,000 candidates per month. We have partnerships with 3 of the biggest applicant tracking systems, and we're accepted into Start Chile Accelerator. This is kind of like what the Alpha platform looks like. So it's kind of like a search. This is a lot of our data. This is about like 5,000 or 6,000 candidates. So we're starting to see a lot of interesting things based on this other data that we get, like gender, ethnicity, age group. Since a lot of the tests that we have are tech-based, like 85% of these candidates are male. So we want to make sure by looking at this data, we're obviously giving opportunity to demographics that are not like a big portion of the population. So there's examples. So we have some of the examples of the tests that we have. We have 320 of them. So frameworks, languages, the game design. So a lot of different types of technology and current technologies for a very diverse range of for tech. This is an example again of the test, the bot test that the candidate will take. Next milestones, we want to continue. We're kind of a data company right now. We want to get up to 45,000 candidates in the system by 2021. We're currently growing at about 3,000 to 5,000 candidates per month. And we only have about 15 of the tests that are being taken. So we plan to release more tests that get taken to collect more different types of skills in the system. We're going to start making partnerships to place these place these candidates. We have a big contract with a company that operates mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, and they're going to start using our tests to get general skills of a lot of people in just tons of different countries in Africa. So that's going to bring in a lot more data. And we want to build a community for being the leading voice in removing bias. And then we want to launch. This is me. I went to MIT. I worked at Google. I worked at a company called Yodel. I got sold for $350 million. I was one of the first employees there. Braxton, he's the product director. I've known him for 10 years. He's one of my good friends. He has an MBA from Columbia Business School, worked at McKinsey Zynga. So we hired a couple of interns over the summer. These guys are pretty young, but they're really smart. They both scored 800s on their SATs. One goes to Cornell and one goes to NYU Stern. Our advisors, Christian Duffus is a successful entrepreneur here in DC. I met him. He's really smart, gave me a lot of really good advice. Professor Raj Devi, he handles all the patent IP legal stuff. And he is also a professor here at GW and in India. Kent Warren, I worked with him at my previous start at Yodel, and he's an investor and has really always great business advice. Donald Ramatar is not an official advisor. He's my uncle. I'm from a country called Guyana. That's where I was born. And he's just my uncle, and he's just a good contact to have in case we want to expand to South America.
1 minute warning.
So next quarter, we're launching our beta platform, continued growth, more pitch events, continued candidate growth, finalizing. So last quarter, added 220 tests, updated the platform and have an alpha of the ID platform, and this provisional interns added more candidates. And we have a patent, which is basically a reverse Turing test, so that where the bot is assessing you, that's patented the conversation. It's basically where a robot is interviewing a human. Basically, that's a patent that we're granted in 2018. That's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I guess you could keep your video back on.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. So let's start with Catherine. Any questions?
Yep. So thank you. Can you tell us more about your go-to-market strategy? Like, how do you acquire the candidates and how do you onboard the employers?
So that's a good question. So we recently started, it's a chicken and the egg problem. Do we want to get go B2B and try to get a client first and source candidates for their job? Or do we just want to get data? So we decided to just get a ton of data, and we came up with this really cool way to get data, really super fast, really high quality data. So then we did some experiments. We did some experiments. How do we want to monetize this data? Okay, so we start reaching out to a few companies. I'm in the DC area. And we did a few meetings, but it was really taking too long. The companies were interested, but they already had their recruiters. So I was like, okay, this sales cycle, this is going to be a very changing sales cycle, depending on the company. It's going to use up a lot of time. So we don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of resources. Let's try to sell this thing online. Let's try to monetize this. So we came up with a way to that's behavior change way, where the recruiter is just looking at the candidates. They can't see the name. They can do a get intro, and we sell that data data based on credits. So they buy credits. We decided that was probably the best way, based on experience we did last quarter, to monetize. So that's why we're continuing to build out a newer, nicer UI. It's kind of look like a little bit like AngelList, like the AngelList recruiting site. We kind of copy that for a little bit. I probably shouldn't say that live. It's something like that, where you can see the candidate, you can see their a nice report and their skills, things like that. So we went ahead just with that strategy. It's a easier, scalable strategy. We also have 3,000 recruiter leads, and we're going to start doing cold marketing on some of them, and depending on the industry. So we're going to send out maybe 250 at a time. Cold marketing emails to try this new platform. You get 5 free credits. So there's also that strategy we're going to start to execute this quarter also, once the new UI is built at the end of July.
Thank you.
All right, Ryan.
All right. It's funny because I had a similar question, and I want to just do a little deeper dive into her point. Can you clearly define, it's going to be like a 2 or possibly 3-part question. Can you clearly define who your target audience is? Geography, revenue-wise, industry, stuff like that. And then your strategy to get there. So what would be your marketing budget, and what's your marketing mix?
Two great questions. Okay, so the audience is basically, we want to target we want to reach out to we have 3,000 leads. We want to see, basically there are 2 things that recently happened, just in 2020, all the basically the shootings, basically recent events. When I turn on the news, when I go in my car and I drive around, I listen to Bloomberg, and they're always talking about diversity. How can we make companies more diverse? So this is a huge thing now. The second thing is Trump signed a executive order recently. I think it was 2 Fridays ago or something, saying that federal hiring needs to focus more on skills instead of degrees. Yep. And they say they encourage other companies, the corporate environment, to kind of take that approach too. So the companies are kind of moving into, Indeed and LinkedIn are moving into doing more skills testing, but no one's really changed these platforms yet. It's still LinkedIn is still basically your profile, Indeed. So this is a new thing. And companies right now, just as I mentioned, based on these 2 huge events, they're looking for this new thing. So that's my audience.
So
how to find that? So the audience, the market has grown basically just recently. So okay. We have these 3,000 leads. We're going to just reach out to these leads with we're starting a new marketing basically with the new website design and things like that. So the current website journey, it just has journey.hr, it just has skills. It's just going to change to this platform. It's going to look like Indeed. When you go on it, you just have this blind search, and then you can sign up as a recruiter or a candidate and take skills tests or find candidates, things like that. So those are the competitors, basically, LinkedIn and Indeed. So our marketing message is going to be kind of focused like that, but with this slight change in behavior.
Okay. All right. Hey, so Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a couple of follow-up questions. One, just ripping off the last 2 questions, was how do you sort of acquire candidates or get people to go take the test in the first place to be on the platform? And then sort of a follow-up to that is, how do you establish credibility around these tests, both among the candidates that are going to take it and the potential recruiters?
Sorry, you broke up a little. What was the last question?
Yeah, and how do you establish credibility around the tests, both for the candidates and for the recruiters, that these tests are kind of accurate?
The first question I can't really answer. That's very proprietary. I don't really tell anyone. My mom doesn't even know how we do that. But we do it, and we do it really well.
Okay.
So you might think of something. I don't know if you guys saw the hack. There's a Netflix. I forgot what it's called. It's The Great Heist or The Great Hack. You saw CrowdStrike, how they do it. We don't collect. We collect the tests. It's something I think it's similar. It's similar to that.
Okay.
We're getting as much data as they were able to acquire as fast as they were acquired. I can't tell you exactly how we do it. But They were using that data for bout purposes. They were collecting basically personality data.
Okay.
We collect basically hard skills data, like like on different technologies, things like that. But yeah, I can't say exactly how we do it.
And on the test side, the credibility around tests.
So those are licensed tests that we got.
Okay.
So this is we bought those basically.
Okay.
So they've already been yeah.
Okay.
Not proprietary. No, I couldn't put together 320 tests myself. I don't know 320 technologies.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that, Rajiv. So we're gonna bring in our next contestant is Sebastian Ortiz. Sebastian, there you go. All right, very good.
Hello,
oh,
everyone.
it's a three people team. Look at that. All right.
It's a trio.
It's a trio. Awesome. Okay, very good. So who's presenting?
There we go.
Okay. All right, very good. So same rules, 10 seconds. I'm going to give you a 5-second start time. Well, a head start, that is. And here we go. You guys are ready? You guys start the clock.
Yep.
And 3, 2, 1, off you go.
All right, so I'm going to kick us off. I'm Lucas Vining, the CEO at Icosia Biotechnology, where we are developing a scalable method of mass producing an enhanced red blood cell product called erythrocin, created by leveraging proprietary genetic engineering techniques to address a global blood crisis by making blood safer, less expensive, and more reliable. So again, I'm Lucas Vining, the co-founder and CEO, and a molecular biologist, and I have research experience in stem cells, genetic engineering, and quality improvement of patient care studies.
I'm Sebastian Ortiz, currently studying to attain my master's in biotechnology at Northeastern University. I have collective expertise in drug discovery and live animal model studies.
And I'm Carter Pugh, and I'm responsible for business development, marketing, and team management.
And then Emil Jagernoff is our CFO, and he will be earning his MBA from Northeastern University this upcoming August. And he has strong expertise in the Boston biotechnology community and in early stage financing. So the United States requires over 13 million units of red blood every single year to treat conditions including cancer, trauma injuries, and chronic anemias. But even though blood transfusions have evolved into a common life-saving clinical practice, the blood supply chain itself has seen very little innovation in the past few decades. So all transfusible blood still originates from actual human donors, which result in constant shortages and leave patients without life-saving medical treatments. Of the globe's 310 million unit annual demand, only about 110 million units are actually supplied. And as there are no currently developed blood substitutes, physicians are completely helpless when these shortages arise. And in many developing nations, this forces the transfusion of contaminated and untested units, contributing to the spread of pathogens such as HIV and hepatitis viruses. In the United States, this risk is largely eliminated by an extremely cost-inefficient manufacturing and testing regimen, but this is a logistical nightmare for blood bank directors, and it dramatically increases the cost of donor blood. And COVID-19 has demonstrated that we cannot rely on donations for our blood supply, as unforeseen events can and will jeopardize that supply and critically accentuate shortages.
Icosia is solving these problems with our proprietary product called erythrocin, an enhanced red blood cell product created by leveraging novel genetic engineering techniques. Icosia erythrocin is synthesized by taking a sample of stem cells from human bone marrow and controlling their transformation into red blood cells, all in a laboratory. We can obtain these cells without any ethical conflict and genetically engineer them to transform into fully functioning red blood cells. This proprietary process is easily scalable and has the potential to meet the global demand by utilizing a repeatable method. In times of crisis such as this, erythrocin would not be a response, but rather a preemptive solution, as we can scale daily production and adapt to daily usage. This method allows erythrocin to be synthesized on demand, so as supply need not rely on human altruism. The sterile laboratory production environment ensures that erythrocin is completely disease-free. Additionally, by genetically erasing all the compatibility-limiting cellular markers, erythrocin would be truly universally compatible, eliminating the risk of incorrectly cross-matched transfusions. By eliminating the need for constant disease testing and burdensome cross-matching, as well as genetically directing the stem cell differentiation process to be as efficient as possible, erythrocin will be less expensive than donor blood by up to 25%. Preclinical data to date, where minute quantities of blood have been experimentally produced, has established a strong proof of concept, minimizing technical risk and demonstrating that the product is safe and completely functional. ICOSIA retains full IP rights to every aspect of erythrocin, and a provisional patent is currently being drafted.
So ICOSIA plans to follow existing market dynamics and pursue hospitals as direct buyers. Through direct B2B customer outreach, we will negotiate with blood bank directors and senior supply chain managers to establish long-term contracts. And by working with hospitals as strategic partners through a series of clinical regulations, we will advance our commercialization timeline and create meaningful relationships with potential customers. Now, once full-scale clinical deployment is reached, we will utilize vertical integration and establish regional manufacturing, storage, and distribution facilities. And the key ecosystem players with which we must collaborate there are the FDA, contract research organizations, and biological component suppliers, all of which we have already begun speaking with. So erythrocin will generate an average of $200 in revenue and $150 in profit per unit. Comparatively, a unit of donor blood can cost anywhere between $200 and $300. Our pricing strategy undercuts donor blood while still delivering a higher value, because our customer discovery has revealed that to overcome the greatest barrier to entry, namely the status quo, a price incentive is required in addition to higher technical value. So under this price model, at the United States' 13.1 million unit annual demand, US hospitals alone represent a $2.6 billion annual market, which is only a small fraction of the global $62 billion market.
So through the team's completion of the National Science Foundation's I-Corps program, ICOSIA has already opened up a dialogue with dozens of hospitals, including some very prominent institutions, as well as the US military. Through speaking with these blood bank directors and C-suite executives, we found that all US hospitals experience similar donor blood-related challenges. We even have received encouraging feedback that hospitals desperate to resolve the issues in the blood supply are eager to adopt innovations such as erythrocin. Now, globally, all legally collected blood is obtained by nonprofit organizations. In the US, market share is divided between the Red Cross, holding 40% of the market, and roughly 50 various independent collection centers holding the remaining 60%. Although hundreds have tried, none have created a clinically viable red blood cell substitute. This is largely because the most widely used approach is to synthesize a chemical model in an attempt to replicate the infinitely complex system that is a human red blood cell, resulting in a product lacking comprehensive functionality. This was the case with two promising chemically based artificial blood products, Hemapure and Erythromer, which ultimately failed clinical trials. Erythrocin is unique in that our research employs novel genetic strategies to enhance and refine a natural process rather than reimagine it altogether. Because erythrocin is identical to the blood in your body right now, it maintains all the same life-saving properties and would function as well, if not better, than donor blood. This builds confidence for a successful clinical trial later on.
So while Hemapure has not achieved FDA approval in the 2 decades since its development, it has been approved under the FDA's Expanded Access Program, which enables a clinically untested pharmaceutical to be used to treat patients with a life-threatening prognosis and for whom all other FDA-approved treatments have been ineffective. So in this context, this includes primarily chronically anemic patients with extremely rare blood types. Now, ICOSIA has defined its own minimum viable product as a model of erythrocin eligible under the Expanded Access Program. The minimum and most important criterion for the MVP is that the model is universally compatible, and this quality alone is how we will unlock early clinical testing under expanded access. This model, clinically proving efficacy and safety, will also be the foundation from which we build our scalable production process later on. Participation in expanded access in 2021 will allow us to begin revenue generating activity and gather clinical data on an accelerated timeline to shorten and decrease the cost of a later clinical trial in 2022. And to reach a point where our research is ready to be deployed as a product under expanded access, we expect to require 12 months and about $350,000 more in funding. And this MVP research and development would be the purpose of a USPAACC award.
After completing preclinical work at the end of this year and spending the majority of 2021 in the Expanded Access Program, we will look to achieve full FDA approval. The Expanded Access Program will be a stepping stone to a standard 4-stage clinical trial beginning in 2022, regulated by the FDA Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, as this early clinical data will de-risk clinical trial application. Based on the clinical trials processes of similar products, such as Hemapure, and initial discussions with an FDA consulting firm, erythrocin is estimated to undergo a 3 to 4 year clinical trial, costing about $20 million. With FDA approval and a strong reputation from the Expanded Access Program, we will validate erythrocin to the industry as the world's first viable donor blood substitute. With this label, we predict a rapid expansion strategy and to bring in $19.2 million in revenue in 2026. At this point, ICOSA will transition from a static research and development organization to a manufacturing company with a repeatable model. ICOSA's initial sales and expansion strategy is to target high-profile U.S. hospitals as clinical testing partners and then first product adopters to sequentially validate our product, establish an influential customer base, and standardize erythrocin. By following this strategy, we expect to break even in 3 years post-clinical trials.
So we also have multiple advisors in academia and industry who represent a collective expertise in stem cell research, clinical regulations with a particular focus in FDA and technology commercialization. And we're also working with an FDA consulting firm. We will expand our advisory board and find additional senior scientists with clinical experience to join this team. So with your help and further R&D funding from the USPAACC, we can continue this work to bring a truly disruptive product to a multi-billion-dollar global market and improve healthcare for millions of patients around the world. Thank you.
Very good presentation, guys. Let's bring it in. Let's bring in the judges. Great, 6 people panel here. All right. Let's start off with Ryan again.
All right. I guess my first question is, where do I send my resume to?
I'm sorry, could you?
No, I was just joking. I was like, where can I send my resume? I thought it was a great presentation, guys. I understood it. I had a lot of questions, but as I listened to it, there were the questions were all being addressed clearly. So it was very sequential, very logical. And at the moment, the only question I didn't really fully understand, because I thought in the very beginning when I first heard you guys, I thought you guys started clinical trials, but according to the presentation, you guys are going to start clinical trials. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We're preclinical. We hope.
So you're preclinical. Okay. Okay. Do you know what your cost per patient is on the clinical trials? Are going to be?
So it's very difficult to estimate, especially as it will change very rapidly.
Yeah.
But we estimate a $20 million clinical trial, and that's based on similar products. So like we mentioned, Hemopure, which is a product by HBO2 Therapeutics, other blood products like that.
Okay. Yeah, you know, it's pretty expensive. You know, usually it's averaging around $40,000 per patient. You know, so and $2,000 or so per visit. I thought it was it's a great job. I actually have very marketing strategy.
Only one question, so, Ryan.
Yep. Okay. No problem.
All right, Catherine. Yup.
Yeah. Great presentation. So my question is about the use of the funds you're gonna raise. You're gonna raising $350K. So do you have the breakdown of the fund?
Yeah, so that $350K is only to get us through preclinical bench work and to start us on animal models. So they'll push us significantly closer to the Expanded Access Program, which is our go-to-market strategy. But we recognize that as a fairly low number. And we've been able to do a lot of research with only a few tens of thousands of dollars because we've been very careful with our spend. And we have a level program in Massachusetts, where we've been doing some of our work, and through George Washington University.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And Nick, you muted, Nick. It's okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
yep,
so I mean, this is a huge market opportunity. You guys did a really good job communicating that, I think, in the pitch. You know, what's sort of your secret sauce on the IP side? And maybe talk about that a little more, because given that's a huge market opportunity, I think a lot of others will be looking at it as well.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, I can't tell you exactly what we're doing.
Of course, yeah.
You know, research over the last 20 years has shown that to create red blood cells, the reason it hasn't already exploded to replace donor blood is because it's very, very expensive. So on the order of $15,000 a unit versus $200 donor blood, and it's difficult to scale. That said, with new stem cell technologies, we are working on solving that scaling problem and working on reducing that cost problem. And basically, you know, very generally the way that works is all you have to do is identify the costs, and then it's a combination. I think this is where our technique is a bit special, I'm going to say. It's a combination of using scientific genetic strategies and then just business strategies, finding the best suppliers, taking advantage of economies of scale.
Got it. Thank you.
Awesome. Great presentation, guys. Very good. So let's bring on our next contestant. I think we got two more. We got Sud Latwa from Tipbox Me. Can you turn on your video? And there you are. How you going, Sud? All right.
How are you?
So let's you know the rules. 10 minutes. Give you a 5-second a head start. You could start with your presentation, so you can have so you can save some time on there. Great. And let's start the clock. 3, 2, 1. Off you go.
Hello, everyone. I just want to start by saying thanks to USPAACC for hosting this event in this difficult, interesting times, and the Northeast Region chapter for supporting the local ecosystem in the startup community. I'm Sud Luthra. I'm founder of Tipbox Me. So let me start with a personal story. It might seem like distant past, but when you all used to travel, but last year I was in New York City watching the street performance, you know, where they get a couple of people and they do a backflip. And I'm having a great time, and this one was special because my son was taking part in that. But as soon as that's done, and as expected, the performer came looking for money, and I didn't have any on me. And my son goes, "Dad, don't be cheap." I tell you, I mean, I was not being cheap. You know, the basic problem is we don't carry cash. Nobody carries cash, and if you want to, you know, you run into these situations where you want to give just a couple of dollars to that usher, to the valet, to the street performer, to the bellhop, you're not able to. And even if you run to the closest ATM, you're going to get a $20 bill because that is the smallest bill you get. And post-COVID, you are just not in a position, you just don't want to exchange cash. So at Tipbox Me, we're solving this very problem. By using a platform, you can maintain social distance and still tip instantly, securely, without exchanging any personal information. And we talk about this all the time with the team. So where do we see ourselves in the future? What we want to position ourselves as to be the global standard for tipping. I mean, we want where we're #1 player in this industry of digital tips. You can see digital transformation happening all around you, and we want to be the #1 platform in this space. I acknowledge there is the audacity of hope there, but you know, and our vision is grand. But at the same time, I'll tell you, our focus is really narrow. Right now, we are laser focused on hotels and hospitality, for we believe that if you check into a hotel for just one night, for just 24 hours, you'll come across a platform 4 times: at a valet, a check-in, at the bellhop, and checkout. And if you stay longer, maybe you'll use it at the pool bar or the spot, for we all know nobody carries cash, but we all carry our phone for those selfies. But that is not only the place. There are a lot of use cases where street performers, nail salons, pet stores, Red Cross, Salvation Army, and the list goes on. I figured, I mean, I can go and explain how this is, or maybe I'll do a quick demo to give you a sense of how the platform works. I'm going to show this on iOS, but we have approved app sitting both on the Android and the app stores, both Android and iOS app stores. And what's even more interesting is, can I see a hand, thumbs up if you're able to see my screen?
Yeah, we can all see your screen.
Yep.
Awesome. Let's just make sure. Are you able to see my phone?
Yes, we are.
The other thing I want to mention while this is coming up is you don't need to have an app to make this work. So you could have people who are, okay, there you go. Excellent. So you don't need, like I was saying, you don't need to have an app for this. So you could imagine yourself walking into, a hotel, and they would be displaying a barcode that could be sitting at the valet desk. But if you were to use the app, so this is my phone. And I'm going to bring in a barcode that might be displayed anywhere. You could print it. You could display it on your phone. You could print it, show it wherever you want to do it. And this is, you scan it, and you can send the tip without exchanging any of your information. Now, what's interesting is what you see is these barcodes are native. So even if you didn't have the app, you could use your phone to scan this. To that extent, I'll request you to take your phones out if you want to follow our journey. You can actually scan this right now, and you can start tipping using the platform. Moving on, how do we plan to get these people? So, of course, using industry conferences and social media, we believe the associations are important partners in reaching to these hotel employees. The right to receive tips or digital tips, we believe, should be in the heavy hand of every employee at all of these hotels. Now, that includes the local 25 chapter, United, Service Employee International. I understand that we're focusing purely on the hotel market size worldwide. Like I said, they're like microtransactions is much bigger market, but we want to be focused purely on hotels. There are close to 18 million guest rooms worldwide, and just in US, there are close to 4.8 million guests per night, with the average of 141 being spent, which is even lower for the leisure, for the business traveler, which they spend close to $147. And a conservative estimate is that you spend 1% of your stay in tips. So we have a total opportunity in front of us to close to $1.76 billion. How do we make that money? And I'm sure if Mr. Wonderful was in the judges, that's what he would be looking for. We plan to charge 4% commission on each transaction with a minimum tip of $2. Looking at the numbers, we're not the only one chasing this. So Tip Genie and Try Bravo are two startups, but the biggest player is Venmo. Because the name brand. But what's interesting is in doing interview after interview with a lot of employees at the hotels, they have two options. Post-COVID, or the first option was cash, but the post-COVID, they're thinking of getting a Square and implementing Square because they don't want their guests to say, hey, do you have Venmo? Why don't you give me a couple of dollars using Venmo? Because that's just sounds weird for asking them to use Venmo. Using a platform, you don't have to have an app. All you need is a card. You can give them the card at any time, and you can tell them, hey, whenever you have a few minutes, you can scan and tip, even if you don't have the platform. And I want to stress that because right now, we talk to employees of the hotels, and they say, hey, we, international travelers, we let them use our Uber to call an Uber app. So our platform can be used without the app for anybody to use, and it can be tipped later on. The other thing is, Venmo is not focused. They're trying to be everything for everybody, where we have purely industry focus. And finally, the most important thing, where this is the batching of transactions. So Tip Genie, if there is one number that you're thinking of in terms of competition, they charge close to 20% if you want to tip on their platform. And Try Bravo is pivoting, trying to be a cryptocurrency platform. And I understand futures alone don't make product differentiators. It's the team to execute. I've been in the product and technology frame for the last 20 years, and I stand here alone today, but I have a team back in India, and my co-founder Stefan, who not only studied hospitality but has been in the hospitality business for the past 20 years, and we're making traction. We have signed up Economy in Salisbury. We have tried Hungary and Thai TC as a beta client. We're launching on August 1st with the production launch on October 1st. And you can help. You can help with the connections with hotels. I would request you to follow our journey at TipBoxMe and go tip with the TipBoxMe. Thank you.
Right on about a minute ahead of schedule. Thank you so much. Let's bring the judges back in. Can you unshare your screen? There you go. Great. And let's start with Nick again.
Yeah. So what's your strategy for working with payment providers? At the end of the day, you know,
we use Stripe as a payment processor.
Okay.
So everything is encrypted, PCI compliance. We don't store any data on any of our servers. All the accounts are created and saved there.
And I guess my follow-up question is, what's your strategy against disintermediation? Because, you know, if it's like through Stripe or it's, you know, sort of Venmo or whatever, this becomes a big thing. You know, what prevents them from adopting a strategy of distributing QR codes to, you know, service workers?
So I want to make sure I understand, you talk about payment processor or just distribution to the hotel employees?
Yeah, it's about, so the follow-up question is, what prevents these sort of larger payment processors from kind of disintermediating you by providing these kind of QR codes directly to employees down the road? If this business model really sort of proves out and you're very successful, what stops them from copying you?
Right. So essentially, a lot of companies are trying that, and it's a matter of knowing the hospitality industry in this case. But essentially, what we find is if most of the payment processors, if there was a payment processor to try it, and Venmo is a good, you know, can be substituted for a payment processor. And it comes up again and again in interviews. For one, they want to be a single independent entity outside the hotels. Most of these are driven by the hotels. So a tip box fee would be individual entity, because most of the time these hotel employees make more money in their tips and they don't want the hotels to know. So if there is any of these, and there are spiffs, and the chances are that if somebody were to come in, there'll be a spiff coming from the hotel. So that is one big differentiator that I think, you know, will prevent us from any of these and help us with the moat.
Got it.
And Catherine?
Yeah, so my question is about the willingness of the hotels to pay you. So will they take a cut of the tips, like the hotels?
Good question. Good question. It's interesting. That was one of our hypotheses, and we thought that, okay, if we go into and have hotels introduce our platform, they would want something in return. And again, in interviews after interviews with the hotel managers, independent hotel owners, they want to follow the policy. Don't ask, don't tell. They don't want to know about how much their employees are making. They are proud owners, but they don't want to take any money that is given to their employees. So even if that, you know, I mean, initially that's what our hypothesis was as well, but no, that's not what they want to do. They want a direct relationship, and that's where the partnership with union comes in, because if you are a unionized hotel, you declare some tips, and how much you declare is up to you, but that is key. So no, they're not interested in making money off of their employees.
Gotcha. So can we know the conversion rate from the beta clients?
So we're in beta right now, and what's happening is, if we were to, so in the hotel, in one of the hotels when we did this, they want to try it, and of course, but COVID right now, people are not in hotels, right? So there is, we don't have a lot of data from that regards. But prior to COVID, most people, they would want to carry and they would want to print something like that, because at the end of the day, you don't want, again, this is coming from the hotel employees. They don't want to suddenly show their phone and say, hey, look at my phone and you can scan the code. They just want to give the card and say, you can just tip whenever you can.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And Ryan.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it's a new concept. So I know that there are 3 other competitors that you mentioned, but it's a new concept to me. I traditionally tip in cash just because I know it's usually what's preferred by a lot of the service providers. But like you, I don't have sometimes a lot of cash on me. I'm always, you know, a digital person, digital currency all the way. So I have been in that problem, and it's an interesting solution. I'm thinking about the incentive to adopt the tool on both sides, the user and the recipient, you know. So the incentive model that Catherine brought up to me was, you know, at the forefront, you know, what incentivizes me as the hotel owner or the franchise, you know, owner, but then also as the guest of the hotel. To me, I'm thinking I have to then now download a new app and another app into my phone. I already have a collection of apps in my phone. What marketing strategy are you using to go after the the tipper as opposed to the tippy?
There are a couple of questions in there, and thanks. I think it's a very good question. First of all, I want to clarify, you don't need the app for this to work, right? So, and like I said, you can actually take your phone right now and you can scan this, because this is native to every phone. You can use your camera and scan the card. I mean, you can try this right now. You can just, I'm going to lift it up. You can do that. What happens is, in this ecosystem, we understand that it's a double-sided marketplace. And studies after studies show that if you're doing a double-sided marketplace, you want to go to the supplier side first. So we don't want to be in a situation where we're saying, hey, this app is ready, you're launched, but they're not hotels using it, or not just the hotels, but all the hotel ecosystem, which is people who are going around the hotels, because we want to make sure we want to capture all of those. So there are a lot of incentives that we're playing in. One is, this is tried and tested. I think PayPal did that. They were the first ones to do that successfully, where we help subsidize the first tip up to $2 for the tipper, because you don't need to use the app. You can go ahead and use your camera to tip if you wanted to, and you can tip at your own convenience. But that is just one idea. But at the end of the day, to answer your question, the hotel owners care most. And if you speak to anybody, they'll tell you they want the most seamless experience and the unique experience for their guests, right? So even though they make money off the ATM fees, they would rather have a system which is more seamless transaction for the guest owner. So the experience comes first for the guest. For the tippee, because they are the champions for a product like this. And that's why, if it is partnered with service unions, if we have direct relationship with the tippee or the hotel employees, then they are the champions. They're telling, hey, you don't have an app, you don't have a cash, don't worry. You can just take the card, or wherever you're in a hotel, you can scan any of the barcode and you can tip at your own leisure. So the fact that it is there in all the hotel room, at the pool bar, at the valet, you're seeing this a lot of times. So the inertia, if you wanted to download the app, there are benefits to download the app for sure, but you don't have to have the app. And in future, Apple is coming up with app clips that's going to make the experience even easier.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Asud. So we're gonna bring our last contestant, and we're gonna bring it back, Joe James. Joe, I hope you're ready for this one now.
Hoping so too. Thank you for your patience.
You're welcome. No problem. We understand. So let's go into your share screen.
My laptop died last night. I had to buy a new one this morning. Here we go. There it is.
Okay. Can you share your screen? There you go.
There it is.
And there you go. All right. Very good. So we're gonna have the countdown clock, and let's start the timer. And 3, 2, 1, all yours.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to share with you an urban application of a very exciting process that we've developed that will help the city of Baltimore cost effectively fight climate change, advance its sustainability plan, enhance community health and safety, and also create new bioeconomy jobs. We're doing this in partnership with the Exelon Foundation. Come on, slides. There we go. So our mission is to invent, acquire, commercialize, and utilize innovative processes and technologies to profitably promote the well-being of people, the planet, and communities less expensively. The problems that we're addressing are climate change, and I think everyone knows these days that there's too much CO2 in the atmosphere. We need to find innovative and cost-effective ways to reduce those levels. There are other environmental challenges as well that are creating problems for humankind, including health challenges. And given COVID-19, we need new and cost-effective ways to reduce or eliminate environment-related health challenges. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Our solution is that we plant and then we multitask special biocrops and their resulting biomass to cost effectively promote the well-being of people, the planet, and communities by capturing CO2, remediating contaminated air, soil, and water, and converting the captured carbon into cost-advantaged bioproducts. Our CRBBP process uses two biological processes: photosynthesis, essentially the way that plants and trees absorb CO2, and phytoremediation, a process by which their roots uptake problematic substances from soil and water. Our preferred crop, and one that we've tested for a couple of years, is called biomass sorghum. You'll see standard sorghum at maturity on the left and biomass sorghum on the right. That's 6 months, both of these are 6 months old. Biomass sorghum grows big, fast, and captures 14 tons of CO2 per acre. One of the benefits of our patented CRBBP process is our ability to multitask. We plant the crops, we ask them to do certain assignments, we then harvest them, we convert the material or biomass into a number of bioproducts, including animal bedding, biochar, filler powders, and biocoal. And this multitasking feature, for every task that we add to the crops and the resulting material, we create an opportunity to share the cost of growing the crop in the first place, making those tasks less expensive. With the help of the University of California at Berkeley, we had an analysis done on the relative CO2 capture capabilities of biomass sorghum, our preferred crop, switchgrass, which is another commonly known biocrop, and a stand of pine trees. And over a 15-year period, we extracted 3 times as much CO2 as the trees and twice as much as switchgrass. And in today's pandemic environment, it turns out that particulate matter air pollution causes communities that are impacted by that pollution to disproportionately suffer from asthma and other respiratory diseases, and therefore suffer more and die more often from COVID-19. Research indicates that large crops like biomass sorghum are able to screen out particulate matter from the atmosphere at the community level. So if we were to plant biomass sorghum in a neighborhood in Baltimore, and unfortunately in the inner city, there are many blocks that look like this one, we can both stabilize the neighborhood, but also extract substantial amounts of particulate matter and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. In addition, an old industrial city like Baltimore and like Philadelphia, where I've worked, and Chicago, where I've also worked, you have brownfield sites from prior industrial processes and industrial manufacturing that need to be cleaned up. So if you're a power plant or a large CO2 emitter, we can bring the farm, if you will, and the acreage associated in growing biocrops near you and create an opportunity for us to capture the CO2 of large emitters. And in fact, if we grow our crops within a confined and controlled environment, we can actually create 2 seasons for a 6-month crop and actually be able to capture 30 tons of CO2 per acre within our vertical biocrop farm concept. And therefore, our VBFs can capture lots of CO2 from large emitters, not only power plants, but even the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, which is extracting air out of the tunnel or exhaust out of the tunnel, but then letting it go off into the atmosphere. We can treat that before and pull out the CO2 before it hits the atmosphere. Once we've harvested our crops, we can carbonize them using a patented torrefaction process that we've licensed, which basically heats the material and makes it into a char. We have a very efficient process that was developed by North Carolina State University, which we've licensed. We capture the gases that boil off as the material's heated and use those for making ongoing process heat. It's a very efficient process. The markets that we're attacking for bioproducts are substantial. Our bio-based filler powders, which enhance the strength and other performances of plastics, composites, and we believe tires as well, is a very substantial market. We've tested the poultry house bedding market in our work in the Eastern Shore of Maryland and found very good results. We can then collect the litter and convert that into a nutrient-rich biochar soil amendment. And we've been talking with a major garden care company who's got an interest in adding it to their potting soil. And then we began our work associated with torrefied fuel and torrefied material in support of making biocoal, along with the Electric Power Research Initiative. We plan to spend 2020 and a good portion of 2021 developing our vertical biocrop farm and completing our research and development efforts to come up with a filler product that's ready for the market. We're having conversations with the market already. We have 100,000 committed to us from the Exelon Foundation's Climate Change Initiative. We've got another 20,000 from F3 Tech and West Virginia University, and we're planning on applying for some additional funding. But our first year and a half is going to be more R&D, and we have that funded already. I'm a former 33-year economic development professional. I'm the founder of ATPMD. I've been involved in biomass-related activities since 2004. I invented our CRBBB process and got it patented. And I've just, in 2017, completed a 6-year term on the Federal Biomass Research and Development Technical Advisory Committee. Our collaborators and partners include the Exelon Corporation. The Electric Power Research Institute has also funded our work in the past. We're collaborating with biocrop seed companies, farmers, and manufacturers who can use our bioproducts. We've been very fortunate to have funding from several federal government agencies and state government. And we have ongoing collaborations with universities, in particular the University of Akron, which is helping us develop a circular economy bio-based plastics and composites using our fillers. I mentioned that we've collaborated with EPRI, the Electric Power Research Institute. They actually funded us for a couple of years. We've planted our biocrops in the Chesapeake Bay watershed farm soils to extract nitrogen and phosphorus to protect the bay. We're having discussions about doing the same in Ohio to protect Lake Erie. And then we've demonstrated the superiority and markets for our cost-advantaged bioproducts, including the bedding, fillers, and biochar. We are one of only 10 companies nationwide to have been selected by the Exelon Foundation for its investment through its Climate Change Investment Initiative. We expect that announcement to be made next week.
You have 30 seconds.
Well, I've completed what I wanted to present to you, and I'm now prepared to respond to your questions.
Oh, very good, very good. So can you bring it back to your video?
Let's see if I can do that. Stop sharing.
Very good. And show your video, and then we'll bring you in. Very well presented. Great presentation, Joe. So let's start with Catherine.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I like your mission-driven business since I also worked on some like impact investing projects back in college. So my question is, what's your monetization strategy for the patent? Like, what's the future growth plan after Project Baltimore?
Well, first of all, we have both urban and rural applications. There's a great need for lots of farmland to be treated around the country to remove the contaminants that are referred to, as well as brownfields. We can earn fees from that service. We also happen to be collaborating with a customer. The Exelon Corporation is one of the major utilities across the U.S. They have operations in Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and Chicago. And they all happen to be cities in which I served in a senior capacity as an economic development director. And I'm sure that the same things that we're finding in Baltimore are needs that need to be met in those other cities. Not to mention other utilities. The utility sector is under great pressure to try to reduce its carbon footprint. And we have a very cost-effective way of helping solve that problem while we also create opportunities to generate revenues from the bioproducts that we developed. And because of the multitasking features, we're able to make those products ever more cost-effective because we can reduce our biomass costs.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Nick.
Sure. No, exciting concept, and then I think the concept of urban farming and sort of taking advantage of unused space is all very interesting. I guess my question is, in Baltimore, who's your ultimate customer? And maybe sort of follow up with that is who's the customer ultimately selling to in these other cities?
Well, look, we have several customers as we do the Baltimore project. The Exelon company, Exelon is a customer. They've got to figure out how to reduce their carbon footprint. And we have a customer that's invested in us, which is pretty exciting, to help us collaborate to solve that problem. So in addition to the $100,000 investment, they're also providing $100,000 worth of technical assistance and partnership to assist us in both our design work and implementation work in the city. Our other customers are those who wish to purchase the bio products that we make. And as I mentioned earlier, the fact that we can make them more cost competitively gives us a leg up on our competition. And then lastly, the activities that we're involved in will, we believe, qualify for federal tax credits for CO2 capture. And we are working hard to qualify them for that as well. That creates another revenue stream for us that helps to make us more profitable.
So I guess in the go-to-market strategy, do you see it more as working with companies like Exelon or working with the cities?
Well, in a way, we're working with the city as well. Baltimore has a strategic plan to fight climate change and also to enhance their environment, as all cities do. So there are fees and or grants that we could receive to help us underwrite some of our costs at the city level. But as I mentioned, Exelon has operations in Baltimore, DC, Philadelphia, and Chicago. Yeah. And if things go well, that's a natural expansion for us. But we're already getting inquiries from utilities in California. We also have some interest from Europe, European companies as well. So we've got a number of we have a global technology that has applications in differing ways all around the world.
All right, thank you.
And Ryan.
I love the social entrepreneurship side of this, where there's a responsibility back to the community, and a lot of businesses sometimes put profit over the greater good of the community. So I definitely love that. So I applaud you for that. Where I'm curious on is the cost side. What kind of cost do you incur? So if I understood it, there's 4 different products that you guys are researching and developing towards. And I'm assuming that each one has a unique, cost or revenue model. But I'm assuming you're going to launch it out in phases. So whatever the first product is, what kind of cost barriers do you guys face?
Well, the first product is likely to be the filler powders. We're very close to market in collaboration with the University of Akron, which is helping us develop that product. The fact that we can multitask the biomass and the crops and the biomass before we convert it into that product allows us to be very competitive price-wise. So, for example, filler powders will sell in the $400 to $600 a ton range. Okay. Before this process, our cost might be in the $300, maybe $350 a ton range. By being able to share cost, we can reduce our out-of-pocket cost to about $150 to maybe $200 a ton, which leaves an awful lot of upside potential for us to make us much more cost advantaged.
Fantastic. All right, thank you.
So, that product can be used to make plastics composites that are stronger. We had a customer relationship with a company in California that made flower pots. Okay. And the flower pots would tend to wilt, if you will, when the temperature got over 100 degrees. We gave them another 25 degrees of heat tolerance because our filler was better than the standard filler that's been used.
Fantastic. All right, thank you. Love it.
Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you, judges. So that was our final contestant. So the first thing I want to do, I want to make sure that I want to recognize all the judges, and thank you so much, Ryan, Nick, Catherine, for coming on not being too critical, I guess, but I would say that thank you for your time. And so so you could bring it back to me, Stevenson. So the way all this works, everybody, is that the judges will be submitting their score to the USPAACC, and then the USPAACC will tally it up and figure out who will be going to the next round. There are 2 more rounds to go on August. Let me just get my data correct over here. August 14th is the semifinals, and the finale will be September 15th. So this is captured in 4 different regions in the United States, from the west or to the east. We're in the Northeast region. That's why I'm here hosting it for the Northeast region. And I can tell you that there's a lot of great entrepreneurs, and this is what it's all about. So again, thank you so much, Ryan, Catherine, and Nick, for coming on board. And we hope to, we hope that you could come out to the. I guess this is gonna be all virtual again. I hope you come out to the finale, and support. Now the question is, do you have Ryan, Nick, Kat? Do you have any last minute anything that you want to say, and to the contestant, any advice, tips that you want to, takeaways?
Yeah, I think the takeaways are going to be very unique because each contestant showed a strength in a different area. I feel that I got a lot of clarity on the financial side or the revenue model from one, where I got a lot of clarity on market penetration and tactics from another. Depending on who the pitch is going to be towards, there should be a heavier focus on different parts of your business plan. I try to look at this almost as if I was going to be an investor. So I was really looking for the return on my investment opportunity, and understanding what that business model really looks like, which I got from most of the contestants. But I would say that understanding who the audience is, and making sure that you hit each of those components, because there's a few components here where I didn't hear about everybody's exit strategy as an example. So that I would so the final thought, making sure that we hit all the components of the business plan, And
you know what, you touched on something, Ryan, because if I look into investing but I invest in my own company, I invest into opportunities as well. And I look into people that could give me some transparency around what they do in their business, so I could have some level of trust that my dollars are going to have a return on investment. I know some of the presenters, I get it, they have this level of secrecy, and rightfully so. They developed the product, but there's also that understanding and have that balance that if you want, palm job, you guys are big investors. You got unicorns under your belt, and if I wanted to pitch you something, I want to make sure that I give you reassurance. So that's some sort of takeaway that I want to give to presenters in the future as well. Nick, do you have anything?
Yeah, I would echo that. Just some constructive feedback. I think it's a lot of different TAM, total market size slides, but often the piece was missing was your company's cut of that market. It's like, hey, this is the place, the field that we're playing in. But there wasn't enough about, hey, this is our slice of that. Yeah. This is our cut. I think it would be good to see a little bit more on unit economics. I know a lot of these are early stage, but just understanding, hey, this is where we think the unit economics will be because, our future revenue is going to be very recurring. Or, hey, this is how we think about how much sales is going to cost and how much customers are going to be worth. I'll echo the point, exit strategy. Every investor is going to want to hear a story about that. So you might as well just put it out there. And then, I asked a lot of go-to-market questions, but I think every investor wants to see some sort of slide or story around, hey, this is why we're equipped to go to market, and here's our plan.
Good point.
I agree with them.
Yeah, and Catherine.
Yeah, I definitely saw a lot of interesting opportunities here, and personally, I'm very metrics driven, so I would like to know more about the details of the financial plans and the growth plans. So if anyone wants to have further talks, feel free to send me materials, and also I'm happy to sign NDA.
Same here.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We're running out of time, so I'm going to close it out. But thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Kathy and Nick. Hope to talk to you guys soon again.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
All right. So everybody, stay tuned for round in August 14th, the semifinals. I don't know how they're going to be distributing it yet, but I'm sure USPAACC will send out the newsletter. Make sure you're emailing info@uspaac.com for more information. Check out the website. They have a lot of things going on. We're in a virtual world. This is a totally new way of working. This is the new world, and I believe that it's going to stay. This is going to stay here for a very, very long time. I would suggest that for me as an entrepreneur, I run several different businesses as well, and I would say that presentation is very key. How you communicate, how you articulate it, and how you tell that story, without and really being empathizing for who your target audience is, whoever's listening. The key thing is that for them to listen. And for you to listen to them as well, because they have an understanding what they want sometimes it's not just about you, and understanding the values and understanding your purpose around why you have a business in the first place. It's not just making a lot of money, or maybe it's something for impact. Or whatever that is, make sure that you clearly define that understanding for your listener, and let them be the judge of if they want to invest into you or not. So with that, see you next time, and talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
Adios, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So steady, even gold won't turn your tide. We flow together like an ocean, every low and every high. And I would have you